What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Please ignore the fact that my mattress is on the floor. I'm in the process of reorganizing my room, which is a story in itself, but I'll save that for when the new room tour video comes out, when I get around to making it. For now, I almost didn't have a video for today, but then last night, the director for a 30 grad project that I'm doing production designer for asked an interesting question, and I wasn't really sure how to answer it. So I thought I'd make a story time and tell you the answer that I ended up coming up with. Alright, so the question was, what one item reminds you of your childhood? Simple enough if you take it at face value. However, does this item have to be an inanimate item, or can it be an animal, something living, like a family pet for instance? And if not, do I still need to have access to this thing? Like, do I need to be able to physically hold it, be like, ah yes, the memories? Or... and I think, most importantly, am I overthinking this? The answer, of course, is a resounding yes, at least at that last part. But I think it still bears wondering. And so, with context that I will be giving as well, here is the story of my childhood, or rather, an abridged version. Let's get into it. Okay, so I was born in Sunnybank, a little suburb in Brisbane, in 1994, but my earliest memory is of making these paper plates with my brother in Tumblr in 1998. Basically, we were given a sheet of paper with a plate-sized circle on it. We drew whatever we wanted in that circle, and they turned it into a plastic plate for us. And I know it was 98, because the designs that we drew on there were from before my sister was born, of which the plates are evidence of, and she was born in early January of 99. So if we're going for earliest childhood memory, that plate would be my item. But, as one of the questions I posed earlier, do I still need to have access to it? Because I do and I don't. I do know where the plate is. I don't have immediate access to it because it's back in Tari with my parents. So moving on, in mid-2002 we moved to Nambucca Heads, a small town about a half hour south of Coffs Harbour, and I remember having to repeat second grade simply because my birthday is in the latter half of the year. But I had loved living near the beach, especially since my nan and pop lived nearby in a retirement village called Valor Beach. Now, for those that don't know, when I say retirement village, I mean a retirement village, not just a retirement home that has a village on its mailbox to make it sound nicer. Like, Valor Beach is legitimately its own community. It's got a little sort of market area, it's got some other public things that they can use, like some little sports fields and stuff. It's an actual little like township. And I also remember that they used to have like a little hot rod show on the Labor Day weekend each year, which I loved because that's the weekend of my birthday, and so it was almost like Nan and Pop's town put on this really cool party for me. Keep in mind, I'm 7 at the time. So you might be thinking, well, hot rods, that's the thing that reminds you of your childhood. But that's not the first thing that came to mind when I started thinking about Valor Beach. It was actually kookaburras. Again, can my item be an animal? Alright, so a little aside. You know that scene in Moana where the grandma is like, come back and her like spirit animal thing is a stingray, as a callback to the early bit where she's like, when I come back, I'm gonna be one of these, and she's being circled by stingrays. That's the vibe kookaburras give me when I think about my nan. Now, my nan was, and continues to be in many ways, far and away my favourite family member. Don't get me wrong, I love my whole extended family, both sides, dearly, but no one has ever come close to holding a candle to Nan. And every time we would go and visit Nan, she would pull out all the stops and cook us an amazing meal for dinner, even if dinner was at lunchtime. And I'm talking, she crowded the stove with pots and pans. There were the pile of dishes afterwards was sizable. Like, we're talking a 3-course meal, 7 vegetable minimum in the main course feast. They were honestly some of the best food comas in my entire life. But Nan would always cut the fat and the gristle off whatever meat it was she was preparing. This is especially the case for steaks. And instead of putting them in the bin, Nan found her own green option. What she would do is she would gather them all up when she was finished preparing the steaks. She would take them out onto the porch and she would throw them into the street. Now, before we go ahead and cancel my nan for littering so haphazardly, don't worry, they never touched the ground. The kookaburras were too quick. They would swoop down and catch them mid-air and then go back to the perch on the power lines right in front of Nan's house. So if reincarnation exists, my nan's a kookaburra. Like, it's to the point where there was one day where I was eating cake or something for like afternoon tea out on the veranda myself, and a kookaburra swooped down and was sitting about what is now my arm's length away from me and just sort of stared at me as if waiting for me to feed it. That's how comfortable they'd become with my nan feeding them. And so it's in her memory that this plate has a kookaburra painted on it. But that plate is new, so can it be my item? Or does it not matter because it reminds me of my childhood, and that's the question being asked? I would also have said my ceramic duck. It was supposed to be a cookie jar or something like that, but my nan always had lollies in it, like the ones in like the wrappers and stuff. But RIP, after choosing it as my inheritance, it was involved in a little accident, of which no one was at fault, and the top broke. But once again, an item directly correlating to a core memory that I have involving my nan. Now, sad times. My nan passed away in 2003 of bowel cancer, and in her final months I remember helping her change her dialysis bags whenever we visited after they moved to Coffs Harbour to be closer to the hospital there. And when I would help her change her dialysis bags, she would call me her doctor man, and I would feel very important indeed. And so even though thinking about these things makes me sad now, I mean, I even teared up. That's a lie. I had a minor breakdown writing the script for this video. But even with that being the case, I would do it all again, because it meant that little bit of extra time that I got to spend with my nan. Sadder times, I largely consider my childhood to have ended when my nan passed away. After that, most of my childhood memories are of being bullied for being what I had taken to phrasing as the perpetual new kid. The reason being, we moved around every 2 years to 18 months to 2 years. So first off, we moved to Armidale the end of 2003 after my nan passed away, and that was for my dad's work. We then moved to Warialda in 2005, sort of about halfway through 2005, again for my dad's work. And by 2007, I was starting high school. I remember not knowing anyone at all during orientation, except for one kid's teacher's aide, who was someone that we knew through church. Religious trauma aside, they were lovely, and so I was kind of happy to have at least somebody I recognised. Not the point though, because all the children my age had pre-established friendships coming with them to high school from primary school, and I knew absolutely nobody. And so even 3-4 years on without my nan, I felt very alone for a very long time. But I digress. Today I had a meeting with the director of this grad project that I'm doing regarding some questions that the art department, of which I am the head of, these were some questions that they'd been asking me, and I was able to finally ask them, the director, these questions that were being posed to me. Turns out, animals are in fact a relevant thing for answering this question, and so it's kookaburras for the win. So this is a photo collage of my family, my mum and dad, my brother and my nephew, our family cat, my sister and her fiance, and then these two dogs are the ones that I want to sort of talk about. They're relevant to this story too, because we got Jack, this boy here in the center frame, as essentially an emotional support animal in 2004, and then my boy George came along a year later and was actually named after Nan, George being her maiden name. Now, I loved both of these boys tremendously, but again, sadly, as life does, they have also passed on in recent years. And now I've moved into a place where I can't have an animal, and I once again feel kind of alone. But talking about the photos and the plate that I have on my altar, I do also want to get a photo of my Nan and Pop for my altar. There is a special spot being saved right in the middle of it for a photo of them, because of how much they mean to me. Anyway, I think that might do it for this video. My therapist certainly doesn't need the extra work. I don't need to be going backwards on what we're working on. But before you go, if you like this video, please go ahead and hit that like button, give it a huge thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe wherever that button is if you haven't already. I upload every Monday and Thursday. And while you're there, make sure to ring that bell and turn on those push notifications so you can be kept alerted to whenever I upload a new video. And let me know in the comments section down below, what would your answer be to the question, what one item reminds you of your childhood? I'd love to see what you have to say, and we can all sort of reminisce on simpler times together. And with all that out of the way, I am done here. So until next time, guys, keep your head screwed on.